Hello friends, welcome back. The following is a conversation with Brian Kinney from the Paralyzed Living YouTube channel. He's a great friend of mine, a personal inspiration. He really helped me out when I was newly injured. It's a great continuation from our first conversation, but it's certainly not a prerequisite for a great standalone podcast. We speak about a lot of things, including how our parents found out about the injury and how they dealt with it in their own different ways, and the sort of a lot of common ground there, among loads of other things, spasms, Baclofen pumps, keeping fit after the injury, bowel programs, UTIs, all sorts of spinal cord injury related stuff. However, if you don't have a spinal cord injury, I still think it's a really great conversation between two friends, and it's really worth sharing. So without further ado, I'm thrilled to present to you Brian Kinney once again. Hello Brian, welcome back to the podcast.
Hey Fred, how's it going, man?
It's going really well, man. I'm thrilled to have you back on. It's January, and I'd love to ask you about your year, like reflecting back on 2023. How's it been, man? Like, what's the highlights, lowlights? What's the story?
Well, like I said, I feel like mine hasn't been as, intense as yours has been, but a lot has been going on this year, just mainly with my family. As far as, I don't know, there's been a lot of death in my family this year, which is kind of unfortunate. My mother-in-law moved in with us. So kind of the backstory on that. My wife's brother passed away last October, and my mother-in-law was just having a really hard time. He lived with her, so she's basically moved in with us and just trying to adapt to that. And then throughout the process, several other people that are close to me have passed away this year. So that's it's kind of been a crazy year of just, trying to adapt to, new surroundings, new people in the house, that kind of thing. But overall, I mean, it's been a good year. It's, my daughter's 5, so we've been watching her grow up, and took a couple trips this summer. We went up to Lake Michigan, which is, it's about a 5-hour drive from here, but it's basically like going to the ocean, since it's a huge, huge lake, and it's fresh water. But that was kind of our little getaway. We did that in June. So
wow, man. So how is it dealing with death? I mean, like I'm touch wood, I'm very lucky. I haven't had to face that much death in my life. But I'm sure the time will come. As you get older, more people die around you. But how's that been?
It's been weird. So a couple weeks ago, one of my close friends who just turned 40, he passed away. Oof. And it was really, really bizarre. I mean, unfortunately, it was, self-induced. He drank a lot. So he basically got cirrhosis of the liver and passed away from that. But ironically, it's the same exact thing my mom died from in 2006. So watching him go through that was kind of like, kicking me back, 18 years, or not 18 years, but however many years it's been, to being 22 and watching my mom go through that. So it's just been weird. It's just been very, very bizarre. And it's especially thinking he was only 40 years old, how I'm about to turn 40. And it just seems like there's so much, you think there's so much more life, but just sometimes it's your time is up. So that's something that we recently dealt with, and it was really, really sad, and watching his parents go through that. So just things I think about, especially watching his dad, how he reacted, and thinking about my own daughter and putting myself in his shoes. It's just like, you can't imagine. It's same thing with my mother-in-law. You can't imagine losing your child before you. It's not really supposed to happen that way. So
of course,
it's just been interesting. But
I think that's one of the worst things they say that can happen is losing a child, and it's absolutely savage. I couldn't even imagine. My mum had a really, really tough time when I had my accident, because obviously I nearly died, and maybe your mum was the same. I mean, it's just so. Actually, you mentioned earlier that did your mum pass away before your accident?
She did, but I had the same exact thought. Like, had my mom been here, she passed away 3 years before my accident. But had she been here and had she
Mm.
had to watch, that whole process, I
Mm.
often wonder if that would have made her drinking even worse, because the reason she drank, she wasn't abusive. She wasn't any, she wasn't a bad person at all. She was a great person, but she wasn't very emotionally strong. So
Mm.
she kind of just drank to numb her feelings. And I feel like that's
Yeah.
exactly what would have happened with my accident. But how did your
Oh,
mom
yeah.
react?
It was really well. She at first the initial reaction she just broke down in tears, and she tells when I tell her she's obviously traumatized by it. Even if I bring it up, like that day that Lou called and she got the phone call, you can see like physically her body tenses up, and she doesn't even
Right.
like to remember it. But she obviously thought that she was going to say, that your son's passed away. I can only imagine kind of what she went through, but I think she tells the story of like she just broke down. She couldn't stop crying. She couldn't control herself. My dad didn't know what to do. My dad called my sister. My sister basically arranged everything like an angel. They came over. They flew over to Geneva and then came to the hospital in France. And they saw me. And it was really odd because I woke up after spinal surgery and like God knows what cocktail of drugs. And my mum and
Yep.
dad were there and my sister. And I was like, what? How did you get here so quickly? Because it seemed so quick, But obviously it
Yeah.
was, yeah. So my sister sorted it all out. So my mum was there. But yeah, I mean, obviously the story ends that I pulled through. Everything. It was a happy ending. I live a happy life. But yeah, I can only imagine. It was so hard for her. Not only that, but like hearing me, like I guess dodge a bullet, but then being like, "Oh, kill me! I don't want to live with a spinal cord injury. Like, life sucks." And then going through a deep dark depression that followed, about 9 months after that was really hard for my mum. And I'm really glad that I come through the other side of it, to be honest. But yeah, it must be absolutely awful.
Yeah, it's that initial phone call because what you said sounds a lot like the story that my dad said. My dad told me. So he lived in Alabama, which is probably 8 hours from Ohio, and he's since moved back. But at the time, he got a phone call that said, your son's been in a motorcycle accident and he's in ICU. And his immediate thought was that I was dying, that
Mm.
I wasn't gonna pull through. So they jumped in the car, same exact situation as you guys, and all of a sudden I wake up, in a drug haze, and there he is, and there's all my friends, and people I haven't seen for it was just a really weird situation to wake up and okay, you're here, and everybody's so concerned about you. But I was
Mm.
trying to, I don't know. I woke up and I was smiling and joking with people. So I think they realized that you know there was still a
Yeah,
little piece of me in there. I mean, I might not be able to
yeah.
walk, but man,
I
those
think I
drugs.
was. I was as well. Like when I first
Yeah.
came over, and I was going to say to you, I think the drugs help a lot. Like you wake up in an opiate haze, and you're
Oh
like,
yeah.
"Yeah, I'm sure it will be fine," And as the drugs wear off, you start to think, "Oh shit, I'm paralyzed. I don't want to live in a
Right.
wheelchair." And then they pump you more full of happy drugs, and you're like, "Oh yeah," because it takes away the physical pain, but it also takes away the emotional pain as well. And I
Right.
think that was something that contributed a lot towards my mental health dip because I was on opiate painkillers for a long, long time, and then I got
Right.
constipated, and my spasms got really bad, and then the doctor said you need to stop taking morphine. He never said to wean off of morphine. Maybe common sense tells me like maybe I should have weaned off, but I just stopped
Right.
taking the morphine, and then I had withdrawals, and then the depression of like, oh, I don't want to live in a what's going on. I'm such a burden, etc. And yeah, I really think that was a real contributing factor towards my mental decline was me stopping the opiates so abruptly.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you basically just crashed. I'm sure emotionally
Mm.
and Yeah, I mean, that's why I've always been so afraid of the painkillers. Like anytime, I've had several surgeries since, and I'm so afraid of them because I don't want to get addicted to them, or I don't want to
Mm.
get, have that same experience of trying to get off of them. I don't remember
Yeah.
having trouble though. I mean, when I got out of the hospital, I wasn't on anything major. I think just like Percocets and stuff like that. Were you on morphine once you got home, or was that still in the
Yeah.
hospital?
So one of the interesting things was I'd wake up in pain in the hospital, and I'd have to push this button, and sometimes it would take them ages to come and give me the morphine. So what I would do is I would save some morphine, so when I woke up I could push the button. I would take some morphine, but when they gave it to me I could just keep it for the next time. And they found my little stash of morphine and they told me off. They were like, you can't do that, you really can't do that, that's forbidden. And I was like, oh, okay. Yet when they discharged me, they gave me a prescription for enough morphine to kill an elephant. And I was like, I came home with a carrier bag full of. I was like, wow, why were they so
Jesus.
mad at me for keeping a few pills for when I was in pain, when I was in the rehab center in the hospital, and yet you've discharged me with an enormous prescription, easily enough to get addicted. So it was really silly, really. But I wasn't too worried about getting addicted. Richard from Wheels to Walking really helped me. Like, his story of addiction helped me dodge my own potential addiction. I was very aware of it, but it did help for sure. It helped the physical. I really like taking the long, what are they called? The slow release ones.
Yeah.
Before bed, you take a slow release one, and then you wake up, and waking up is just a little bit better in the morning, and that's a bit dangerous.
Yeah. As far as like stopping breathing in the middle of the night, that kind of thing, that kind of dangerous.
Yeah, well, not dangerous like that. I think it's dangerous because it's very, very addictive. Like waking up in the morning, I would always wake up in pain, and I still wake up in pain. And one of the, I think, biggest, like I said before, like one of my biggest complaints is the spasms, and then waking up in pain, and then being in discomfort. There's so many things you get used to.
Right.
Like the spasms, I don't know if they've got better, or I've got used to them, or waking up in pain has got better, or I've got used to it, or again, the discomfort. But yeah, you just get used to it. I'm not 100% sure if they've got better or whatever. But anyway, having the morphine, waking up not in pain, or waking up in a little opiate haze was way preferable than to wake up, miserable, looking at my wheelchair, being like, oh, I can't walk, etc.
Right.
And those were the ones that were hardest to stop, because waking up in pain is a terrible way to start the day. You start the day in pain, you start the day grumpy, and so I enjoyed waking up with the morphine. Those were the hardest ones to give up.
Yeah. Yeah. My only thing, I get so spooked because, drug addiction has kind of been a thing in my family. So I was like, I see this being a slippery slope, and that was really the only thing that kind of scared me away from them. But yeah, man, spasms, I feel you. Mine were terrible in the beginning. So like I was going to talk about the Baclofen pump a little bit, just because for me, it was a necessity. Whereas like, I know for other people that, the stiffness and stuff that you talk about, but mine was more violent. Like, I was stiff, but I would get these violent spasms that would just kick me around. My feet would shoot out. So anytime I'd go to transfer, it was like, oh shit, am I going to hit the deck this time around? Am I going to make it into the car, or am I going to have, basically my body just kind of would tighten into a pretzel. And it was scary. I think we talked last time, going up a ramp, and all of a sudden getting a back spasm and slamming back on my head. And it's like, this isn't something, for me, it wasn't something that I could handle. And it made me, that was kind of ramping up as my depression was kind of setting in too. So it was exactly like what you say. You wake up and you're in misery, and it's not the ideal thing. You're like, is this the rest of my life? Am I going to be waking up like this every single day?
So a question I really want to ask you is, what was life like before the Baclofen pump versus after the Baclofen pump? I've got a good idea, but I'd love you to tell it in your own words.
Yeah. So basically, before any bumpy surface that I'd roll over, it didn't matter if it was just really light gravel, or I don't know if you see those, like when you're on the street and you're going, up a curb, and there's that little like plastic rumble strip. I don't know what to call it, but it's basically, people don't fall. I used to hate those things because anytime I'd roll over one, my body would just go crazy. And I always felt like I had like a vice around my core section. It was just extremely tight. I mean, it felt like I couldn't breathe very well. And then I went in for like the trial dose to see if I was a candidate for Baclofen for the pump, because it doesn't work for everybody. So they have to give you like a bolus dose just to see how it works. And I remember rolling out of that doctor's office like, holy shit, this is how life used to be, like as far as, I'm in a wheelchair, but like I can control my body. It's not like I'm trying to, take care of a, 25-year-old baby, that's spazzing out. Like that's literally what it was. So, and sleep got so much better. Transfers,
I can imagine.
Transfers got so much better. I mean, it wasn't that, I mean, it was a scary thing. Probably the first, the 6 months because I got the Baclofen pump within about 10 months of my injury.
That's incredible. That's so good.
Yeah.
A lot of people suffer for so much longer.
Yeah. But I was just at that point where like when I went to the doctor, he's like, we got to get this for you quick. Because he said yours are as, pretty much as bad as I've seen, as far as your tone. And the tone I could kind of deal with. It was a pain in the ass, but it was the spasms, the really like hard kicking spasms, mainly my back kicking backward, that was the worst. So,
yeah, I can imagine. Like my spasms are similar. I can relate to what you're saying, but not on the same level. But they're obviously a lot lower down. I don't get the spasms in the core as much, but I do a little bit. Like it's really hard for me to, if I'm laying down to get up. It's for me. It's like you say. It's the tone. It's the rigidness more than the spasms.
Yeah.
It's the constant muscle tightness. I love the analogy that you used of like wrestling with a 25-year-old baby. It does feel like that. Like it feels like I'm wrestling against my body. It's hard to explain to someone who doesn't know how you're wrestling against. Like you have these violent outbursts from your own limbs, and you're wrestling with your limbs and they're so stubborn. You're like, I'm pulling them and I'm like, my leg just won't bend. It's just rigid, so rigid, stiff. It's annoying for transfers. But again, they're not that bad. Like obviously when I look at myself in a vacuum, I think, oh, they're terrible. They're awful. I hate them. And I see other videos of people on YouTube and I'm like, whoa, they're not that bad. So all of a sudden it turns into like gratitude. I'm like, well, it could be worse, So they don't kick out as much, but I know a lot of people that do suffer from such horrible spasms. I know a girl who's had a hip replacement and her spasms are sort of really, really, really damaging her quality of life. And she is fighting tooth and limb to get a Baclofen pump, and like to get one within 10 months. It's kind of obvious that she is a prime candidate for a Baclofen pump, but they're dragging their heels, and I don't know when she's going to get one, but her quality of life is being dragged through the mud, and she's been injured for over 2 years now, and it's really savage,
Yeah. I mean, so the downside of the Baclofen pump for me has just been financially. So, like I have a friend that's in Canada. In Canada, they have like, government health care, but here we have, private health care. And so every time I go to get the pump refilled, it is, I'm trying to think, before I meet my deductible, it's $1,800 to get a refill. And then after my deductible, it's $500 every time I go get it filled. So if I'm getting it filled every 3 months, I mean, it's expensive to maintain. And that it's only because I am on private insurance. I'm not on Medicare or anything like that. And they won't give me Medicare because they say that since I'm working, I'm technically not disabled. But I recently had the pump replaced because after about 6 years, they have to replace it because the battery will eventually go dead. So they try to get ahead of that. And I got the bill that was, they billed $65,000 to replace the pump. And that is
Wow.
just simply taking the pump out, making an incision, taking the pump out of your stomach, disconnecting it from the line, reconnecting it from the line, and then sewing you back up. Literally took 20 minutes. The doctor told me,
Yeah.
it's like a 20-minute procedure. And I'm like, what the, like you get this
Yeah,
bill.
yeah.
And I'm like, holy shit. My part of that was $6,000. So this year has been very expensive just due to the Baclofen pump. But even that said, I don't know if I could live without it. It's like you pick your battles,
Of course,
do I want to pay, all this money every single year for my medical bills, or do I want to be miserable,
Well, I think, to be honest, if you gave so my friend is called Casey. I think I can say her name. She's interested in coming on the podcast as well. I think if you gave her the choice at the moment, she would be like, yeah, okay, I'll pay the money, just anything. But then I guess you're signing up. It's like a subscription, right? It's like, yeah, So if I get this right, you have to pay $500 every month, every 3 months.
Well, that's after I met the deductible for my insurance. So what I'm saying is it's at least 500 because 500 is my 20% copay. So
Right.
they're billing
Okay.
they're billing about $5,000 every time they fill it. Which, if you're on Medicare or if you have other insurance, there's many, many Americans that don't pay a cent for it, because they have,
Oh.
they have coverage through Medicare or, maybe it's disability or what is it called, workers' comp. If they were injured,
Oh.
from work, then that covers it. But in my situation, it's under my private insurance, which unfortunately is 80-20. So they pay 80% of anything and I pay 20%.
Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's odd. I think, like, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of the politics of American healthcare, but over here we get, well, I get all my healthcare for free. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful system, or it's at least heavily subsidized, and I have to pay very, very minimum stuff. But I have a disability card now, which entitles me to, like, I take oral Baclofen and I get that for free. I get all of my meds for free, and most of my medical procedures for free. Like I didn't have to pay anything for the surgery. Like I got rescued from the mountain. I got a ambulance to the hospital, which was like a 3-hour drive away. Wow. I got all the surgery. I woke up and there was no bill to pay, which was amazing. I love that. However, for example, if I want a Baclofen pump, I think I'd be a good candidate. Again, I'm on the fence. It's been 5 years. I can live with it. Like the benefits of the spasms is that I don't have much muscle wastage. My legs haven't atrophied that much. I can imagine like the difference it would make in my life if I did have a Baclofen pump.
Yeah.
But I have to convince the doctor that it's bad enough for them to give me one. Whereas I think if in America, you could be like, hey, I've got the money, give me one. And they'd be like, hey, if you can afford it, we'll chuck it in you.
Right. No, you're exactly right. I have a friend that lives in Italy, and she said the same exact thing where, there is government healthcare, but you have so many more hoops that you have to jump through. And she was basically telling me that if there's a cheaper option for you, then they're always going to go with the cheaper option unless you get, a doctor or somebody to really be your advocate and, explain why it's so important for you. So yeah, there are pros and cons. I don't think I would have gotten it within 10 months, had I not have private insurance. So that was good, but it's just the regular maintenance. Cause it's not something that's going away,
Yeah.
and I'm constantly paying on this bill that just never gets smaller. In fact, it just keeps getting bigger. So it's like,
I can imagine.
Since COVID, I currently owe $12,000 that I just keep paying on monthly. So it's a pain in the ass financially, but it's worth it to me.
Yeah, I can imagine, man. They really got you by the balls. They could be like, hey, Baclofen's just gone up in price, and you'd be like, well, I guess I'll pay it then.
Right? Yeah, you don't really have a choice. It's like, I want to be miserable. And I've even tried to wean on, try to lower my dose just to see, because it's been in me for so long that I kind of forget how bad they were. And then I'll start waking up, just a little more uncomfortable and a little more tight. And I'm like, I finally got to a point where I'm like, screw it, just up it, up the dose back to what it was. It just wasn't. It's not worth dicking with, not because it does affect your quality of life, and I get it.
Yeah, 100%, man. Like I'm actually on more than the maximum dose of oral Baclofen. You're only supposed to be taking 80 milligrams a day, but I take 120 milligrams a day, which is, I guess, is like a third over the top.
Yeah.
And when I go back to the doctors, they can't prescribe me more because the pharmacy aren't legally allowed to give me more. So I just go back to the doctor sooner. And she's like, well, I can do that, but you gotta get your blood checked. We gotta find a solution because we can't just keep giving you more and more Baclofen. And I'm like, I get it, but like if I take less, my spasms are worse. And it's like, yeah. I mean, stretching helps, exercise helps, lots of things help. But like, I have an office job now, and when I'm sat here and my muscles are really tight and they're kicking out, like nothing really helps. Yeah, I don't know. Again, they're not as bad as I've seen online. Like, I try not to complain too much about them. And I guess as time goes on, the more you get used to them, it's like my new normal, which is not great. Like, it's not like it's not like I love it. It's interesting. Also, I've noticed that my girlfriend's really got used to it as well. Like, I when other people see my spasms, I always get quite embarrassed because I think a lot of people just don't know. They just think, oh, a paralyzed man, his legs are flaccid, right?
Right.
And when you
exactly.
see the rigidness and it's embarrassing, and I don't like really people looking at me, and I guess I've never really been that embarrassed in front of my girlfriend. I can't remember, but like the fact that she's got so used to it, and like the fact when she sees my legs tighten up, she's like, oh, like, do you want me to straighten them out for you, or do you want a stretch? Or sometimes she gives me a little foot massage actually, and that helps quite a lot as well. So
That's
it's
cool.
really nice to have that sort of like understanding and not being embarrassed about it in front of her. But yeah, it's interesting how she's got so used to it as well,
Yeah. I had a question for you. So I was on 120 of Baclofen, and I think it was some other spasm medicine called tizanidine or something like that. But
I think tizanidine,
Yeah. What I was having issues with was falling asleep at the wheel. So I would be driving home from work, and it would make me so drowsy. Do you have that? Or do you feel like that's worn away?
I think I'm very, very lucky. Like, a lot of people get drowsy with oral Baclofen, but I'm not one of them. I also take Valium or diazepam at night, or I used to. I mean, I take it. I've taken a lot less now. I certainly sleep better with it, but I kind of wake up a little bit groggy. That certainly makes me drowsy because it's Valium,
Yeah.
But yeah, luckily the Baclofen doesn't make me drowsy at all. So I guess I'm just one of the. Yeah, if it did. Wow, I think, well, I don't know what I'd do.
Yeah. I mean, going like this and all of a sudden open your eyes and you're still driving. It's like, holy shit, that was not a good thing. And when I told my doctor about that, he's like, a lot of his patients didn't commute. They didn't drive. They had other people driving them. But he said, since you drive yourself, that's a really big hazard, obviously for you and other people is what he told me. So that kind of sped up getting the pump also. But yeah.
That's not good, is it? You can have some relief from your spasticity, but here's a side order of narcolepsy.
Right, exactly. So
I don't think that, yeah.
I was going to say, like with the pump, like I've also noticed that, I'm much more of a lightweight with alcohol because it seems,
really?
Yeah, it seems like it kind of plays, a little bit of a piece in, like, if I have a couple beers, like I get really tired, which never
really?
I mean, a lot of people have that issue, but for me, it just seems to, I think it just intermixes with, my Baclofen dose, and it just makes me more drowsy. I mean, even if you read the label on yours, it probably says don't use with alcohol or something. I don't know if that's
possibly
true.
Yeah. Well, I actually gave up drinking alcohol since my injury, so it's been 5 years sober now. So I don't have that. I haven't had that experience of drinking alcohol with Baclofen, but I think that might have had something to do with it. In the early days, they were saying, don't drink alcohol with the Baclofen, and I don't know, whatever. I think the most contributing factor was when I had my first beer, I really wanted to smoke. And I was like, oh, well, I've kind of given up smoking, so I may as well just give up that because then I won't want this, So
yeah, No, I know
that was
what
the
you
big one
mean.
for me.
Yeah, nicotine and alcohol are like they're buddies. I
Yeah,
deal with
they are.
I deal with the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, changing gears, I wanted to talk to you about UTIs. Like, do you still get UTIs? Like, are they quite common, or have you sort of found a way to dodge them?
No,
Oh
I mean
yeah.
it's been probably a year and a half, maybe, since I've had a UTI. I take it's called methenamine. It's kind of like I'm trying to think what it's called. It's a prophylactic UTI drug. Basically, it's a version of an antibiotic, but it's not an antibiotic that you can build an immunity to, or
Oh, okay.
But essentially what it does is it makes the urine more acidic in your bladder. So it basically creates an environment that bacteria can't stick to the lining of your bladder as much. So I use that. And have you ever heard of D-mannose?
Yeah, I've heard of D-mannose. Yeah.
Yeah, that using those two things has been kind of like my cocktail that really helped get rid of the UTIs. Or not, slowed them down. And then the last couple of years, I don't know if it's my body that has just kind of gotten more used to it. In addition to those, that it's kind of made it go from an every 3 month thing to an every 6 month thing to an every year thing to now we're at like a year and 6 months. So
Yeah. So I feel like extremely lucky. I don't know if it's my immune system that is like really strong, but I haven't had a UTI in about 4 years. And
wow, that's
I know, and
nuts.
I have this kind of controversial. I don't know if it's the reason why, but I have a controversial, like I guess, technique.
Cool.
Whereas this is going to sound really bizarre, but I never clean before I insert the catheter. I was
That's
told,
nuts.
I use these ones that are called the Speedy Cath Compact. And they're
Yep.
like, they have like they have a bag so you can like urinate into a bag. So I never actually need to go to the toilet. And, obviously I keep myself clean down there, but I don't, I literally just whip it out and stick it in.
Wow.
And I know it sounds really crazy, but I don't know. Again, this is really lucky. I don't want people to be like, "Oh, he didn't, clean, and he hasn't had one in 4 years." And then and then whoever's listening to this start do it. But
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, I don't. Again, touch wood. I don't want to tempt fate. But
Right.
when I was in the rehab center, the nurse said, for some reason, she said, with these, you don't have to. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you don't have to clean because the dirt around you is your own dirt and it's fine. And I was like, okay, and I was still skeptical and I would still like use the wipes and clean myself up. And then I saw a
Yeah.
Facebook comment that a guy said, oh, he hadn't did it for many years. And so I kind of just stopped doing it. And then, yeah, I just haven't had one in many, many years now. And
That's crazy.
yeah, I don't know.
That's a good thing. I mean, I've heard of people with like, oh, I just spit on the catheter to lube it up and shove it right. It's like grab it by, out of the back seat of the car and shove it in. It's like,
Yeah.
yikes. I use kind of a closed system. Well, it's not even a closed system, but it doesn't have the bag.
Right.
I've tried the ones you had, but I felt like it was so much that I was throwing away all the time that just made me feel like, I was going to be the contributor to like a giant landfill full of plastic.
Oh,
So
I've had that discussion with myself before. In fact, when I was at my deepest, darkest depression, one of the reasons that I was justifying like killing myself was like, think of the plastic, think of the world, man, think of the plastic that's not going to end up in landfill if I kill myself. Like I use like 8 of these a day. Like
right.
I had like 2 boxes of them delivered to me to like again living in France completely free. Love it, but like 8 of these a day for free, which is amazing.
Damn. See, I pay $1,000 for a 3 month supply, which sucks.
Wow. Is that out of pocket?
Yes. Well, the first time I get it, before the deductible was 1,000, and then it's 190 for any 3 months that I get after that. But I mean, it's literally just plastic tubes. I mean, How
Yeah,
is
yeah.
one of those $8 a piece? It's like, how the hell? It's ridiculous. It's
I get it
stupid.
though. I get it. I mean, like, for the benefit of the audience, they have a bag which fills up, and this tube comes out. I'm not going to I don't want to get that's the sterile tube. I'm not going to get it all the way out because I don't want to put it, I don't want to waste one. But
Right.
yeah, it comes out. It's like telescopic. It comes out. It's like this long, and then you just whoop straight in,
Right.
and then this fills with wee, and then you can dispose of it, and yeah, I get rid of so many of these, but again, I think I was told that these ones are the best ones to use if you don't want to have UTIs. For some reason I don't know, but I found that I went to the UK last year, and I ran out. I nearly ran out of these because my plane was delayed. So my plane got cancelled, and I had to spend an extra weekend in the UK. I put a shout out on a Facebook group, and some people gave me some, but they were different ones. They were like, and I tried all these different catheters, ones that go, straight into the toilet, for example, not in a bag. And I remember thinking, oh my God, no wonder people get UTIs. These ones suck.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I've tried all of them, and there's certain ones. One of the things that I hate about catheters are the really slow ones, the ones that, you're sitting there for 10 minutes almost, like barely a dick trickle coming out, and it's like, I don't have time for this, like we gotta let's pick it up a little bit. Do you feel like those are pretty quick in and out? I mean, it seemed like earlier when you went, it didn't take very long.
Yeah. I mean, literally, just like, again, because I don't have a cleaning routine, I just literally whip it out, whip it in, and then it fills up, and then I whip it out, and then you can put the lid back on. So you just you just have a bag of wee, and like sometimes I have it's really handy because I can do it in my car, I can do it anywhere that I don't have to go to a toilet. Like I just have a bag of wee, and I put it in my bag. Sometimes I come back from poker, and I've got like 4 or 5 bags of wee in my bag, and I have to empty them when I get home, and when I do it in my bed, for example, when I'm sleeping, I just wake up, I do one, and then put it in my drawer. And if I get a bit lazy, maybe there's like 9 or 10 of them in the drawer, and I have to like take them all to the toilet and empty them all out.
Wow.
I've just got like piss bags, man.
Yeah. Wow. So like if you're out and about, you don't just rip it open and dump it in the toilet. You actually take it with you. Like if you're
if I
store.
can get to a toilet, but I'm like 9 times out of 10, I've got my backpack on me, and I take a little bin bag with me. So I've always got like a bin bag. So I take the bin bag, put the wee bag in the bin bag in case it spills, and then just sometimes I'll be carrying around like 3 or 4 wee bags, and sometimes I'll forget about them, and so
Wow, adding some weight.
And yeah, exactly. And then on the subject of UTIs as well, I don't know. Again, I think maybe my immune system is very strong, but sometimes I'll look in the bag and I'll be like, oh, crikey, that looks awful, like cloudy. There'll be sediment in there. And I'll be like, that looks like I've got a UTI. And when I'll empty it out, it will smell funny. And I'll be like, oh, that's interesting. And then all I do is just drink lots of water. And then it just seems to clear up immediately. And as they come out clearer and clearer and clearer. So I don't know if I get mild infections and then just heal from them very quickly, but I don't know, man. Like, even, I guess this is going to sound again really controversial, even after sex, like I'll just be like, just straight in there. Like I'm not like fumbling around, it does go straight in the hole, like
right.
But it just seems to, I don't know, it's just again, crazy. Touch wood, man. I feel like maybe I'm on this huge 4-year lucky streak, but that's, I just haven't had one.
Yeah, I think it comes down to just your body too. I mean, some people, like, you hear women that get yeast infections all the time, and other women that don't. It's like, I think it's kind of a similar situation. I'm assuming, it's weird. It's interesting that the nurse had said that, the bacteria on your skin is like your own bacteria. I've never really heard that before, but that's kind of crazy. So,
well, I heard that like 99% of UTIs come from E. coli, and E. coli is a bacteria that can live safely in your gut, but not in your bladder. So it's basically like I'm not gonna like, if I rubbed my catheter on my bum and then stuck it in my, urethra, it would
Right.
probably it wouldn't be great. But I think that's maybe why women have are more susceptible to UTIs, because I guess it's like closer
They're
to
closer
the
together. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I'm not sure. I know that women with spinal cord injuries, I think, suffer from UTIs a bit more common than men. Maybe that's a generalization, but it's just what I've heard.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, man. One thing I was going to ask you, like, I always worry about like shoving a pube down into my bladder, or like, like, a lot of people that can urinate normally, they flush out any of that sediment,
Of
so
course.
they're not getting, stones and stuff. I always worry that I'm going to wake up one day and have like a big giant stone because I can't really flush that crap out, with shoving a tube in. Have you ever thought about that?
Well, on the subject of pubes, maybe this is it. Like, I am very, very clean shaven down there. It's not something I was going to share on the podcast, but that is something else that, because again, like, it's personal preference, but it's also, again, if I'm going to be shoving tubes down there, I don't want like loads of pubes that could potentially be stuck to the catheter tube. So if it's clean down there, then that's less chance of it happening. But yeah, I do kind of think that sometimes. But at the same time, when I do my bowel program, I wee as well. Like, if I touch like the inside of my bum in a certain way, it kind of like releases like wee. So I do I guess I do get a little bit of a flush out when I poo, but it's not that common, But
Yeah.
yeah.
I've had the same thing. Like if I've had a full bladder and I'm doing a bowel program and it's like shooting out the front, I'm like, oh, I probably should have cathed before I took a dump,
Yeah. But sometimes I like it.
Yeah. Well, that the other question
kind
I
of
had,
like, yeah, go on. Sorry.
no, I was just going to ask you, like your routine, your bowel routine. Like, do you do it every other day, or are you an everyday kind of guy? And do you have accidents?
I never have accidents. I'm very, very lucky. I never have accidents. I sometimes do it every day. I sometimes do it every other day. Sorry, sometimes I do it every day. Sometimes I do it every other day. Sometimes I do 2 in a day. Like, for example, today, I was in a rush and I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a half time on this. I'll come back to it later. It was stubborn. It wouldn't come out. And I was like, I'll come back later. So I'm quite lucky in the fact that I use the manual stimulation. It normally comes out straight away. In fact, going back to the morphine and the opiates, one of the things that I didn't like was that it made me constipated. So if I ever get tempted to like, oh, I'll just have a morphine or I'll have like some sort of opiate because like just for shits and giggles, it will make me constipated, and that is enough to put me off. Like not like what's the word? Playing with experimenting or just having them recreationally.
Right. Yeah, I dealt with the same thing. I mean, I got so backed up. I mean, I didn't go for like an entire week, and they were like, "Well, this is a problem," So then once it did come out, it was like, "Holy shit!" It's it's like an explosion once the cork popped.
And what about you? Do you have accidents?
So it's weird. I go through these like bouts where maybe I'll have 2 in a month, and then I'll go a while that I don't, and then I'll have it's weird because I do still get them, and I don't know if it has anything to do. There's sometimes that like for some reason if I eat a blueberry muffin, I don't know why. I love blueberry muffins, but man, I've had some shit attacks on some blueberry muffins. So I'm like, and it sucks too because my mother-in-law will buy like these boxes of them. I'm like, oh, I want one of those, but I don't want to shit my pants today, so I'm not gonna. But even today, like I started hearing my stomach. Like I was sitting at my desk and it started making some weird, gnarly noises, and I get the sensations I get are more of a tingle in my chest because I can't physically feel when I have to go. But if I feel that tingle and I know I just peed, then I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm going to go hop on the toilet. And sure enough, it was time to take a dump. So yeah, that's kind of
nice.
That's kind of what I deal with.
Thanks for sharing, man.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
My
absolutely.
theory is shit happens, but in my situation, it's kind of a real thing sometimes.
It
But
absolutely does,
honestly,
man.
I wouldn't say it's something I have to worry about that much. I do worry if I'm going on like a 6 hour drive somewhere, just because I'm not going to be
Of
close
course.
to anywhere
Yeah.
that I can clean myself up. So I kind of get a
Yeah.
little bit of range anxiety, so to speak, from it. Like how far can
Yeah,
I
of
go?
course.
And if the shit goes
So
down, it's not a good thing.
I think I have the opposite problem. It's harder for me to get it out than, and don't get me wrong, I would much rather have it that way round than the other way round. But yeah, it's harder for me to pass than it is. So for example, if I need to do a poo and I'm like, oh, I need to do a poo, I can like, I'll be like, oh, well, I can definitely go after the gym or after the swimming pool. I'm very, very confident I'm not going to shit myself in the swimming pool.
Ooh.
I'll just hold it, or hold on to it. Yes, so to speak. And so I think I'm
Huh.
very fortunate in that respect,
But you have some control, don't you? Like I
I
know
can
you said
have
you have some feeling.
Yeah, I have
I,
feeling, I have sensation. I know when I need to go, but I can't push it out. I have
okay,
to,
but can you pinch it? Can you hold your butthole shut? Are
no,
you able
that's
to
the
do
thing.
that?
My bum hole is like hyper contracted, so it's like, it's tough to like loosen it up
Oh
manually to allow the poo to come out. It's like, really, you know.
man, man, yeah. I have the opposite problem. I feel like it's just like a big windsock. Like after that many after that many years of digital stimulation, it's like, man, I got a loose butthole. Maybe that's something you get to look forward to in 15 years, or 10 years.
Oh, maybe. I want to go. I want to move away from the poo, but it's a funny story. But one of the things I was going to ask you is you say you've been injured for how long now?
So this year will be 15 years.
So
Later this year.
15 years. So you've been
Yeah.
injured for 15 years, and you're in such good shape. You're very slender. I've seen videos of you, and you've got muscular arms. What is your secret, man? Diet versus exercise. Like, what's going on? Like, why? And a lot of people, when they first get injured, they have spinal cord injuries. They can't use a lot of their body. They naturally put on weight, but you're in great shape, man. So what's your secret?
Honestly, I just don't eat that much. I mean, that's kind of so, you hear like, what's the saying? Live to eat or eat to live. I'm definitely a live to eat person as far as I feel like eating sometimes it gets in the way of me getting shit done. So I don't
Ah,
I don't eat that much. Plus, when I notice when I do eat a lot, since I'm sitting down, I just feel like I get really full and bloated really easily. So I typically try to eat like smaller portions, and honestly, like I think that with just a decent metabolism, but I do kind of have a belly, so I can kind of maintain my weight just through how much calorie intake I have, but at the same time, I don't have any control of my abs, so that shit just hangs out. I feel
yeah,
like I
but
always got a belly.
yeah, but I think that's to do with you not having ab control. Like if your abs don't hold your belly in, so it looks like it's big, but you're not fat.
Right. Yeah, it's just your guts kind of hang out, because there's no abs to hold them back. When you said you wanted to ask me that question, I'm like, I don't really have a good like. I used to lift weights a lot before my daughter was born. I would go 3 times a week to the gym, and there's a couple of videos that I'm like, I look back on, I'm like, damn, dude, you got some guns, and now I'm like,
Yeah,
meh, dad, I've got like the dad bod going on now, but
yeah,
honestly, I mean, I'm still slim. I just have that belly. And then my
yeah.
daughter gives me shit. She says I have boobs. She's like,
Oh, that's not
"Dad,
very
you have
nice.
boobs." I'm like, "Well, they're my man boobs. Get off."
Yeah, yeah. So I think you touched on something very powerful then when you said that you just eat less. And I
Right.
think a lot of people with spinal cord injuries, well, from what I've heard, they what's the secret to staying slender? And you nailed it, man. You just got to eat less. Like I don't eat that much either. I eat if I go out, I'll have like kids portions, you know, like it's really weird when you go out to eat and you see what other people eat and you're like, oh my God, no wonder you look that way. Like, no offense, but like, no wonder you look that way. Look how much food you're putting in your face. And it's not necessarily people's fault, but when you go and order at a restaurant and the plate comes out and it's this big, and I'm like, holy smokes, like I wouldn't dream of eating a portion that size. I mean, I eat I don't eat hardly ever processed foods. I always cook my own meals, and I cook small portions, you know. I have like salads and stuff like that. And so I eat because I know that I have limited mobility, so I eat with that in mind. I can't eat like a regular person that can use, you know, their legs, you know, the biggest muscles in the body. I eat like someone who, you know, can't move half their body, you know. So I think that's, and also in full disclosure, I go to the gym twice a week and I swim 2 or 3 times a week, and I love exercising. And also part of it, you know, I have to admit, is a little bit of vanity as well. I love being healthy, but I also like looking good. You know, I like looking in the mirror and looking good. So I do make a conscious effort to do it. But I think diet outweighs exercise. Like they say, you can't out-exercise a bad diet. And I think that's really important, especially with a spinal cord injury.
Yeah. And I enjoyed working out back, you know, when I used to do it. It's just like, I just feel like time is not as on my side as it used to be. Plus I used to drive to work every day, and now I work from home. So it's like, I don't have the motivation to leave the house to go to the gym and then come back and work, you know, like I feel like, you know, part of that it's laziness, but it hasn't been as convenient to work out as it used to be. But I'm constantly moving. That's one thing about me, is I'm constantly doing something. And it's the other day I was sitting on the couch on Saturday, and I probably for a half hour I was watching TV, and I'm like, this is weird. Like this is weird. I'm sitting on the couch just watching TV. Like I'm not doing something. Like I'm not, you know, working on a project or taking the dog, you know, around the block. That's another thing. You know, that is my exercise, is taking the dog for a run. Cause she will just haul ass, and I just have to keep up with her, you know, but
nice.
Anyway.
Yeah. So I just think it was worth mentioning because like we're both in quite good shape, and I know that Brittany from Empowered Power is also in good shape as well. And when I have her back on the podcast, it's a question I'm going to ask her for sure as well. Because again, I don't want to demonize people that are larger, but it seems like it's quite common for people to have spinal cord injuries and then balloon in weight. And it's, you know, a lot of people, when I got my wheelchair, the guy said, oh, I would get it bigger if I were you, because it's likely that you will get bigger. And I thought, hell no. I'm like, you know, like when someone says something, you can't do something and you really want to do it, you're like, not me, man. Like, I want to get my wheelchair small. So I don't know. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And the thing is, like, you can always make the width of the tires wider, you know, I mean, so it would suck if you got a big, really wide frame and all of a sudden you're realizing that it's way bigger than it needs to be. But I've seen that happen with other paras too.
But if that's the advice that people give, like to people, like, oh, I'd order a size up if I were you, because you're probably going to grow into it. Like, I think, and also the importance that the wheelchair industry put on how light your wheelchair should be. Like, oh, you know, it's got to be like titanium, it's got to be like carbon fiber, it's got to be really expensive, it's got to be extra lightweight. They should say, hey, listen, eat less, move more. You know, like the less you weigh, the easier it will be to push. You know, you don't have to spend like thousands on a super lightweight wheelchair. You need to focus on weighing less yourself. I think that emphasis could be heightened, you know?
And I mean, it would be great advice, because that's what I was going to say too. Part of the reason I like to stay not heavy is because it's just more, being heavy is more body to move, you know, as a paralyzed person. So it's going to, you know, put more wear on my shoulders, that kind of thing. So I'm just like, I'm not like a muncherton anymore. You know, I don't smoke weed like I did in high school and get the munchies or anything. So I just don't, you know, I just eat, you know, a little bit in the morning, you know, a decent sized lunch. And then I'd say dinner is the meal that I eat the most, but I still I'm not pigging out. You know what I mean? If I go to a restaurant, I'm usually bringing half of it home, kind of thing, you know, and then I got lunch the next day.
Absolutely. The other thing that I like to do is intermittent fasting. So to stop eating at a certain time at night and then to start eating. So basically, don't eat anything after 8 o'clock. And then
Okay.
the first meal of the day is at 12 o'clock. So for 16 hours of the day, you're fasted and you have an 8 hour eating window. Very, very simple rule to stick to.
Huh.
And yeah, so I made a video about it like a while back. It wasn't that popular, but I mean, it's a very, very simple technique. So imagine if you have 500 calories for breakfast and you skip that every day. Every 10 days, that's 5,000 calories that you're like taking out of your diet. So
Wow.
it's a very easy way to, well, I say easy. It's just a way to, just to eat less, just skip one meal out of your day.
Yeah. So how often do you do that? Like just
A
skip a
pretty,
meal?
pretty much every day. Like I normally don't eat until midday most days. It's very, very rare I'll eat before midday most days.
Huh.
Yeah, I'll go to the gym fasted. I'll go for a swim fasted. I got lots of energy in the morning. I think maybe my body's just used to it, but I feel like there's like, I don't really want to get all too scientific because I don't really know, but apparently like when your body goes into ketosis once you're fasted and you start burning off, you get your energy from the fat cells in your body rather than the carbohydrates in your gut. But again, I might be talking shit. I don't really know. It's just something I've read. So
That's cool. Yeah. I mean, I,
yeah,
I don't really know how it works either, and everybody's got their own claim, but I'm on board with you. Just don't be a fatty and don't eat, 1,000 calories per meal, and you're in pretty good shape. So
yeah, exactly. There was a YouTuber I follow recently, and he was showing how hard it is to burn 5,000 calories compared to how quickly you can eat 5,000 calories. It was a fantastic video. It took him all day to burn 5,000 calories with like enormous like runs and like just, and then he consumed 5,000 calories in like 45 minutes.
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
That's nuts.
yeah,
Yeah, the other reason too is I don't want to have to go to the bathroom more than I have to. Like I'm
yeah,
on an every other day routine, and I feel like if the more I eat, the more I have to go. So
yeah,
that was another thing. It's a little bit
exactly.
easier.
So you wanted to talk to me about spirituality. You had some things that you wanted to touch upon. So hit
Yeah.
me with it.
Well, like I said, I mean, I've dealt with a lot of death this year. So I don't know. Over the summer, I got really into watching near death experiences. So they're called
Mm.
NDEs. So basically, somebody dies, but then they ended up, coming back to life. But they had these experiences of what it was like being deceased. And then they come back to tell about it. So I don't know. I just kind of wanted to get like, I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on like what is your spirituality? Are you religious? Are you more spiritual? Like, are you do you worry
Um,
about dying and that kind of thing?
no, I think I I don't believe in God. What God? Well, I say I don't believe in God. I don't really believe in God. I don't really like to use the word God. I had this discussion with Brittany. I feel like God is a loaded word. When you say God, like which God? Not the white God, not that brown God. Like whoa, so God can be quite a loaded word. So, but I do believe. What do I believe? The thing is, I used to be a little bit more, I guess, militant about there is no God, and if you
So like
believe in God, you're
kind of atheist, kind of a little bit.
a little bit more of like a militant atheist. Like if you believe in God, then you're a wally. But then
Yeah.
I'm right, you're wrong. But now I've softened loads. Like I think that I don't like when I look back on my old views that I had, because now I think if you believe in God, more power to you. In fact, I spoke about this on the podcast with Brittany. When people get injured and they say, "Oh, that's part of God's plan," and that helps them get through that, I think that's amazing. If you can outsource your trauma to God's plan, you'd be like, oh, okay. I mean, amazing. And if people go to church and they have like a big community of people, that's incredible, and they're all echoing it back to you. Oh, it's part of God's plan. It's part of God's plan. You're like, okay, sweet. Like no matter what's happened to me, God's got my back, and good things are coming. And I think that's amazing. To be part of a church, to be part of a community is amazing. It's just not for me. I don't personally believe in God. I don't believe in the Bible. I don't have any religious beliefs, but I do definitely believe something. I'm not like a strict atheist. Maybe I'm a little bit agnostic, but yeah, I don't know. That's me, man. What about you?
That's cool. No, I mean, like, I'm kind of in the same boat as far as religion. I always feel like religion and spirituality are two different things. Like, my God is not, it doesn't have to be God. It doesn't have to be Buddha. And, like, I feel like those are all the same thing. They're all just a higher power, if you believe in a higher power. My biggest thing is just, I don't know, man. Do you ever, that whole, this happened for a reason kind of thing? Do you believe that? And that kind of,
absolutely.
I've developed a different spiritual outlook based on a lot of my experiences, and when shit just falls into place. Like, have you ever had those moments where it's like, holy fuck, like this was easy, like this just fell into place? Or the opposite of that, you want to make something happen so badly, and it's like the dumbest things keep getting in the way. And it's like, that's just not, it's just I believe in the universe, as far as like, there's, crap that happens that, there's, I believe in power that I can't see, but it doesn't have to be God. And I feel like for me, religion is just a bunch of rules. Like, I don't worry about, if I do something or if I make a mistake, I'm going to hell. Like, I don't believe that. I don't believe if there is a higher power and there's a God, I don't think he's going to condemn me for making a mistake. Am I a good person? Am I a selfish person? And, like, I feel like those are bigger reasons, I don't know. I guess I'm rambling, man. And this is probably pretty controversial for people, that listen to it, but
no, I think you're absolutely right, man. I don't really have a strict set of beliefs. I think I know what you mean. Like, sometimes religion can feel a bit too rigid,
right.
Like, but then again, like, also the flip side, if you're a part of a crew and you all believe the same thing, that's really powerful. And especially part of a church community, that could be really cool. But again, I think religion's a bit rigid. For me, doesn't really vibe with me. But yeah, I know what you mean. Like, finding meaning in things, like living by a moral code, not because you want to impress the big guy in the sky, but just because you want to, I don't know, like, believe in karma. You put good things out there, get good things back. I don't really know, man. So one thing I did say, again, I keep referencing the podcast with Brittany, but it's something that I said on that podcast, so I'll say it again. But I have a pretty cool gratitude practice, and I write in my gratitude journal every day, and I love it. Now, if I had, instead of writing down things that I was grateful for, if I prayed and I said, "Oh, dear God, thank you for the things in my life," I think that would give me the same amount of joy as a gratitude journal, a gratitude practice would be. But I don't call it God. In fact, I sometimes write "Thank you, life." Thank you, life. But I could write "Thank you, God,"
right.
And it would. Yeah, I don't know. So I think if you pray, I think prayer is a very powerful way to, like. Well, I guess it depends on how you pray. And if you pray like, "Oh, thanks God, I really appreciate all the cool things in my life." We're like, "Hey God, I'd really like a new car and some more money." Like, it's
right.
Right. Yeah,
I see what you mean, man. Like, but the way I look at it, like when you were talking in your last video about, doing the gratitude journal, to me, that's a version of praying, or to me, that's a version of appreciating life, which is essentially what praying, I think, is. Being grateful for what you've been given, and not being I don't know, man. I was just curious to get your take on it and see, like, if you've had any like weird situations, in your life that it's like, man, there had to have been something behind that. For instance, like when I got in my accident, I literally felt like a force was pulling me down. I don't know.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, I literally felt, because I had, ridden that motorcycle in, many, many more dangerous situations than pulling out of my work parking lot, seeing a car coming, cranking on the throttle. Like, I should have been able to control that. And it's so weird. Like, it felt like I was literally being pulled down. So that's the other thing, people talk about like life after death. I didn't know, like, if you believed in that, or that you would pre-planned. There's people that think that we pre-planned this life. We kind of, and not that we planned out everything that was going to happen, but kind of like that there was potentially a blueprint. Like, I'm going to become paralyzed in this lifetime to experience what that's like. Like, have you ever thought about that?
Well, are you familiar with Sam Harris at all?
I don't think so.
So he is a philosopher. He's got an app called Waking Up, and he's a meditation instructor, but he's also like a neuroscientist. He talks on atheism and stuff like that. And he's a very, very interesting guy. And Sam Harris has this talk on the app, and it's about free will. And sometimes it can make you a little bit uncomfortable. It always comes with the caveat, I'm about to talk about free will. Sometimes it might make you a little bit uncomfortable. If it makes you feel uncomfortable, stop listening to it. But his argument, and it's quite convincing, and I can't really do it justice, but he argues quite convincingly that there's no such thing as free will. And like you said, everything is pre-planned. And if you went back to the Big Bang and had the Big Bang happen all over again, everything would play out again 1 billion times over exactly the same way. So yeah, you'd get paralyzed, I'd get paralyzed. Everything would happen in the same way, and it can't be any other way. But that's no reason not to like live your life better, like try, be happy, etc. Again, I'm not equipped enough to explain it better than that, but he had a convincing argument about it, and I'm kind of like on the fence about it. I'm like, yeah, it sounds, pretty convincing. I don't have a convincing enough counter argument to it, but
yeah.
Do I believe it? I don't know. So
he basically said that free will it does not exist.
Yes, that is his argument.
That is crazy. See, my thought is free will is a thing. Like, maybe if there was a blueprint that, we came here with, we make choices and it can go in different directions. But the ultimate, the milestones, the ultimate big things, like, yeah, you're going to get paralyzed might have been something that I pre-planned before I came here, and I don't know. It's just, call me crazy, and I could be crazy. That's the thing. I'm not like, I was just curious to get, your thoughts on like just that stuff,
Yeah. Well, I think one of the, I think we'll end on this. I was doing these hypnosis sessions with what's his name, Paul McKenna. Paul McKenna was a famous TV hypnotist, and then he brought out some audiobooks, and they were really helping me a long, long time ago. And he said, if you believe that everything happens for a reason, then it will just, like, having that belief will just he made a very logical argument that will make your life better. He said it does it regardless of whether it's true. You can choose what beliefs you hold. Mm-hmm. And I thought, that really struck with me. It's like, so you can choose to believe it, and logically it will make your life better, even if it's not true. And someone could come up with a very strong argument that, everything doesn't happen for a reason. But if you believe everything happens for a reason, generally you'll have a happier outlook on life. And that really convinced me. And I was like, well, then I'll just choose to believe that then, because I guess my life will be better. So
yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. Like, what makes you happy? What makes you the most happy,
Yeah.
Not being miserable all the time. Like, I completely see where you're coming from on that. Like, and I believe the same thing, that, I feel like you're kind of the poster child of, focusing on the positive.
Oh, that's really kind. Thank you.
You are. I mean, I feel like I have some of it, but you're like the man, when it comes to positivity and just being appreciative of what you have, the gratitude book. I thought that was cool as hell, because I'm like, man, I think about things that I'm grateful for, but I feel like to write them down like you do, and I feel like you almost get to live it twice. You know what I mean? You get to re-experience what you're grateful for. But I still think that's just a version of, reaching inward, and not being one of those people that always wants more, that kind of thing. I was talking to my friend the other day. One of our friends that we went to college with just bought a brand new Corvette sports car. And I reached out to my friend and I said, this guy, like, just, but busting his balls. But he's like, yeah, his son has a terminal illness. And he, I think, he bought this car to make himself feel better, and I'm like, holy shit. Like, and I love cars. Like, cars are my thing, but there's not a single car in the world that I would take over, my kid. And it's,
of course,
no matter what your hobby is, it's like, there's nothing to replace, these many things that I value in my life. So I don't know. Sorry, we got a little deep there, but
no, I get it, man. I get it. Like, I bang on about gratitude, and sometimes I feel it's a bit cringy or cheesy. But like I mentioned in that video, I heard on a podcast that 5 minutes of gratitude journaling a day is analogous to doubling your income. Imagine if someone says, "Hey, I'll give you, I'll double your salary, and all you have to do is 5 minutes extra work a day." You'd be like, "Of course, I'll do it. What is it?"
Yeah.
You'd be like, "But I'm gonna pay you in happiness." You'd still take it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And you get some people, well, happiness is not going to pay my bills.
Oh, man.
But I think it's a practice that I've habitualized. So I just get up and I do it now. Like, again, 6 days out of 7, I'll write in the gratitude journal. My girlfriend does it as well. And yeah, I mean, again, it creates for me an attitude of gratitude. So I just see gratitude everywhere. And again, I think the opposite to gratitude is like entitlement, when you think like the world owes you something, like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rather than like, oh my God, like amazing. Like, I think the more you appreciate the mundane things in your life, the happier you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I mean, exactly like you said, you see somebody that feels like they've been cheated or, that they're not where they should be. And they're so focused on that they're miserable. I mean, half the time they're miserable. I don't know. I don't think money would ever make me that happy. And honestly, I feel like if I did have that much money, if I did have a load of money, I'd probably be more worried about it. It's like driving a shit car. You don't have to worry about anybody slamming into it. But if you get this really nice thing, it's like consuming you,
Yeah. I actually heard that on a podcast recently. This guy said, the question was, how has having more money made you worry about it more? And he said, that is a really good question. And he said, yes. He's like, having more money has made me worry about money more, which is really counterintuitive. You'd be like, yeah, I mean, I've got more money now and I'm terrified of losing it. Whereas when I had no money, like the only way was up,
Right.
So it was very, very bizarre, very counterintuitive. And like you say, like driving a shit car, it doesn't matter if someone bashes into it or you get a scratch. You drive a brand new car, you notice every little thing, like you're polishing it and trying to keep it clean. So yeah. And I think again, being grateful for what you've got, being grateful for the mundane, it's to do with like happiness. So there was a really good equation, and I think I learned this from Richard from Wheels to Walking as well. Happiness equals reality minus expectations. And I think when my accident happened, my expectations went through the floor. My expectations for my life was like, well, my life's over. I'm paralyzed. I'm going to be a lame dude in a wheelchair. And now everything from then has just been so good. Like obviously I was snowboarding. I was mountain biking. I was like jumping around. I had all my limbs working. But because my expectations were set so low, crushed. Now my life is just amazing. I'm on this upward plane, and everything's really, really buff. So
yeah. And it's not like you don't set goals, I mean, that you just accept where you're at right now. I feel like that's the winning combination, especially in this situation that we both are. Like you can have goals, but don't think that you are owed it, or if you don't reach it in 6 months that you. Okay, well then, life's over.
Yeah.
And I think you figured that out. So I will say it one more time. I'm very impressed. Like the fact that you are where you are after 5 years, or that you made it even. I mean, you've been this way for what, 3 years at least, right? Just
Yeah,
a
I
little
have.
more
Yeah, yeah.
positive. That's pretty quick, if you really
Yeah, I
look at
guess so.
everybody, if you take all of us, you know, all the damn cripples and throw them in a pile, I would say made it to that epiphany a little bit sooner than most. So,
Well, it wasn't without the help of people like you, my friend, with your positive messages online. Again, Richard from Wills to Walking, Brittany from Empowered Para, all these wonderful other people that have like led the path and passed on their own messages. I have to be grateful for that. Like I didn't do it
yeah.
on my own, man. So yeah.
Well, I appreciate that too. And it means a lot when you mention that, or I've heard a shout out on a video. I'm like, oh, there's my name. I'm like, yeah, I made a
Of course,
difference.
man.
So that's
You
awesome.
made a difference to so many people, man. So many people. I did think of one negative thing about gratitude, and
Yeah.
I think it makes me a lot less ambitious. So, for example, there's a lot of things nowadays in modernity. Where the world we live in is they're pushing you to like, self-help and like, get better. And I like, staying fit, keeping healthy. That's really wonderful. And I've been caught up in it sometimes about like, growing my YouTube channel. Like I enjoy a podcast. I really enjoy having these conversations with you.
Yeah.
I love sharing them with people. And my friend the other day said, oh man, you should get on social media. You should like, get clips and like advertise on TikTok and Instagram and like, just, there's this pressure, like societal pressure to grow the podcast. If you don't have 1,000 people to listening to every episode, then it's just a small podcast. But I'm like, I don't like that. Like that whole like getting clips and shoving it down people's throat and saying, listen to my podcast. That it doesn't really vibe with me. Like I love having these conversations. This is the favorite bit of the podcast is this bit right now. Me and you shooting the shit, having this conversation.
Right. Yep.
My least favorite bit by far is advertising it to people. But then obviously part of me wants people to listen to it. I think it's a conversation worth sharing. But, I'm actually content with a smaller audience and having sort of advertising it with my own values. Like I don't want to, like I don't use Instagram or TikTok. So why would I, shove it on that platform and try and, but at the same time, I kind of, you know what I mean? Ugh.
No, I 100% do. I 100% do. Because I felt really like, it gives you kind of a gag reflex to think, that you're making a title that's clickbaity or, like
Yeah.
me and my underwear. I told you that was, that thumbnail
Yeah.
is what probably, and the title is what made 1 million people look at it. And I'm like, is that
Yeah.
really what I want, for everybody to, so I get it. No, I 100% get it. And honestly, like I'm going to admit this. I feel like I'm in a slump because I haven't made a video for a year and a half. I'm almost scared. I don't know what I'm scared of. It's like I've been away from it for so long that I'm like, fuck. Like, am I going to know how to like edit it again? Or like, I don't want it to look half-at, like
Yeah.
how much time is it going to take to, do like, it's weird, And a lot
It's
of
interesting because I have the exact same self-deprecating thoughts as well. But if it's weird because the advice that I would give you is probably the advice that you would give me. Like people love you, man. People love your content. They love your back catalog. They love your story. They think you're amazing. They think you're adorable. You've probably helped a lot of people in the past. They just want you. They just want you to share. They'd love to hear. They'd love to see a video, anything, an update, like a vlog. But then also, what am I going to say? Like, is it worth sharing? I get it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I completely agree with you, but I think at this point, I'm trying to give myself to the end of the month, like just to say, hey, by January 31st, like just throw something up. Just like, where the hell have I been? Well, here's what's been going on, the last year and a half, just to give people an update and feel a little bit, because I love to share and I love the comments and I like, the feedback that people give. Like, I get it. That's what I enjoy. And I think that's why you're in it. I'm not in it to make $1 million. I also got a, notification that like my videos haven't made a dime in 6 months, Even though people watch them, but the issue is that I haven't uploaded with, you have to be a regular contributor to continue getting that ad revenue. And I didn't realize it until I got an email like, sorry, bro,
Yeah.
So,
well, my YouTube channel very recently got monetized, and I don't monitor. The only videos that I've monetized are the ones that people keep looking, like the ones where I've got like a tiny half-second clip of my willy, and I'm like,
right.
yeah, okay, sure. If you want to watch that, you can watch an ad, and I might get a little bit.
Yeah.
So far, since I've been monetized, I've earned like $9. So I'm like, okay, cool. I mean, that's kind of worth it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even mine didn't have, it wasn't anything that I was going to be able to live on by any means. But yeah, I get it, man. I don't like to push. I don't like to make this feel forced, like I would never want to do that. And that's part of the reason I was like, man, it's been so long since I've made a video. Am I going to sound like a cheese dick getting on there like, hey guys, I don't know. It'll be fine. I know as soon as I get in front of the camera, just like right now, I'm going to be myself. It's just been so long since I've done it that it just feels weird, It's like I just need to give myself
I know exactly
a push.
what you mean. Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. Like I sometimes I do make those kind of videos where I'm kind of like performing, but I feel so much more comfortable having a podcast, like just having a chat with you, and we're just having a chat, and it's worth sharing. Maybe I'll chop it up into clips, put it on YouTube. Maybe I'll release it as a whole thing. But if people want to listen to it, they want to listen to it, and people that do listen to it genuinely vibe with it, and I love that. That's cool. Like I say, this feels so much more casual rather than like a performance. It's just a conversation that's to be shared, and people vibe with me, they really vibe with you, and it's a win-win really. So
Yep, for sure.
On that note, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thanks so much, Brian. Thanks for sharing your time with me, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Let's do it again. I can hear, yep, they're home. Man.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Well, listen, thanks so much again, and I can see your family at home, and that was brilliant, man. So it'll take me a little while to, chop it up, edit it, whatever. But this was really, really worth it, and I really appreciate taking your time to do it.
I agree. I think just chopping it up, kind of like what you had said, just in bite-size, pieces. I think that makes sense, because it's like everybody's attention span is, exactly. Like whenever I see a 30-minute video, I'm like, ooh. I don't know.
Your last podcast with me was really popular, man. Loads of people loved it. I got some beautiful comments. I got some comments on it recently, man.
Cool.
Some lady had found my channel and gone through all the podcasts, and I was like, oh, I love it. She's actually listening to all the long form content, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
She commented on yours, Brittany's, the one I did with Pete, the guy who rescued me off the cliff. It was beautiful, and I think it's definitely really worth doing it, man. Because people seem to vibe with it.
That's awesome. That's cool. I love seeing people go down the rabbit hole too. Like, have you ever had people comment on one video and then you'll get another comment, 10 minutes later, and it's like they're obviously on that trend.
Yeah, she commented on videos that were 3 years old, and I was like, "How did you find that?" And she's like, "Oh, I just." Some people find your content and then they just love it. They're just down the rabbit hole, and it's amazing. It fills me with joy, actually, the comments that I get, and that's the reason. I don't need 1,000 views on a video. I just want it to vibe with 5 or 6 people, and if it's gonna really. She said that she lost her son to suicide, and that I reminded her of him, blah blah blah, and it was just lovely. And again, it's not like we have this conversation today. Someone finds it in 2 years' time, newly injured, and they'll be like, "Look at these two guys shooting the shit! Bloody hell! My life's not over, And it's awesome."
Yep. Yeah. Well, now it's my turn to go pee, so I got to do that right now. So I'll catch you later. Yeah, keep me posted. And
nice one. Thanks so much, buddy. See ya. Bye. Hello, friends. I really hope you enjoyed that conversation. I found it very nourishing, to be honest. I really enjoyed it. I really love sharing these conversations. If you really enjoyed that and you think that there's someone that would benefit from listening to that, please share it with them, because you'd be doing them a favor and you'd be supporting the podcast in a way that aligns with my values, and I wouldn't have to make silly YouTube thumbnails that with like clickbait titles and silly faces. So that would be really great. Other than that, I hope the next podcast you listen to is nourishing and glorious, and may you be grateful every day, and just enjoy this big feedback loop of love. All right, peace and love. See you in the next one. Bye.